excitement is building. We've got our little bit of a change of schedule. We're going to be having the Re-Envisioning panel. And then after the Re-Envisioning panel, we're going to envision Jerry Hammond with Brian Rashawn. So it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I'll probably do my Phil Donahue routine on this one as well. So if you do think that you're having some questions that you might want to have answered with this, there'll be an opportunity. This is the wireless microphone part of the evening. So I want to make some introductions, and you know exactly what just happened is exactly what I wanted to happen with this event. We now have Rubio, member of the community. Ramon. I'm so bad at this stuff. Who has joined our panel. So I want to clap for that. Thank you. We've got local people from Weed, which is just exactly what we wanted for this kind of event. We also have Angelina Cook, who works with the Ecology Center and has recently almost finalized an amazing climate adaptation plan. So one of the things we notice is that the climate is getting a little different. If you see the lakes and rivers, and they don't look like they once did. And so she's going to talk a little bit about that plan that she has. And we also, for the Ecology Center, we have Jennifer Witherspoon, who is our new and wonderful and fantastic new executive director. And she's also going to talk about all the amazing things that she's doing. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to let Pacheco, if you would like to start.
Okay.
You want to start?
I'll start. So, hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Witherspoon, and I'm with the Mount Shasta Bioregional Ecology Center. And I want to thank you all so very much for being here today and just coming together as a community and exploring what's possible for the future. Here in Siskiyou County, where we're blessed with a really abundant natural environment, but we're faced with a lot of challenges as well with our economy and trying to figure out what's next for our future. And so I'm really happy that we have Angelina Cook with us here today. And I want to say a little bit more about that, but before I do, I also want to say I'm really happy that we met Ramon Rubio here today, because Ramon is a 25-year-old man who was born here and grew up here, and unfortunately his family, his mom, who's here in the audience today, they lost their home in the weed fire, and they lost 3 properties in the weed fire. And so I just met them in the crowd, and Ramon was explaining to me that he just moved back from Chile. He's worked in Miami, he's worked in England, and he's a business person, and he would really love to move back to this area. But like we're seeing in the socioeconomics of the area, we're seeing that young people really feel like often they can't stay here because the economy is hard. And so Andy and I actually wind up in a lot of conversations about, well, what can we create for the future? Knowing that the environment really has the potential to be our economy here, not just from tourism, but from other aspects that I think Angelina can tell you more about. But I also just wanted to thank Andy Fuso for this amazing event today and everything that he's put into it. And he's our newest board member at the Ecology Center, so I'm just really excited to have him on our team. Yeah, thanks. So, if I may, Angelina, I just want to say Angelina's been working on a climate adaptation plan for Siskiyou County for the past 10 months. And she's pulled together an internal team and other people, other stakeholders in Siskiyou County to help us look at our water and forest resources. I'm just hand it over to you and have you tell us a little bit more about the climate adaptation plan, if you will.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here and sticking it out to hear some of the mental components of how we rebuild and how we are re-envisioning the possibilities for Siskiyou County. I also want to reiterate my gratitude for Andy Fuso for putting this amazing event together. I think that, yay, the music has been so beautiful, and it's art and music is such a great expression of what's possible when people work together. So I feel very honored to be on this panel, and just want to give you a little bit of my background and to give you some context for the climate adaptation plan that we see as a framework for kind of turning some of these crises into opportunities. So I moved here about 10 years ago from Monterey, where I got my master's degree in international environmental policy. And so when I moved to Mount Shasta, well, I was focusing in climate and energy in the early 2000s. And when I moved to Mount Shasta, I found out that in order to truly address these global environmental challenges, the best way that I could be effective was by really focusing at the local level. And before being effective at the broad, complicated stage of climate, that I had to have a better grasp and appreciate the true value of something as essential as water. So in my time here, when I first arrived, Nestle was in the process, or they had just bought the retired McLeod mill site, and they were going to build the world's largest water bottling factory, which I thought was a poor use of such an important resource. So I started contributing towards that campaign to keep Nestle at bay, and then in that process, I really learned that environmentalists around here kind of have a bad name because we're really good at saying no, but we're not so good at saying yes. And I felt like I wanted to be part of changing that story. I think that anyone who lives here and stays here sees that, yes, we need jobs, and yes, we have amazing natural assets, natural resources here that could be the foundation of a very flourishing economy if we figure out how to rebalance our economy with our resources. So just like Jennifer said, about a year ago, I started working with the Mount Shasta Bioregional Ecology Center to work on this climate adaptation plan. And what we've done in this process is really wrap our heads around the forests and watershed issues that pretty much provide the foundation for our local quality of life. This area got started with the timber industry, and in the more recent decades, we've kind of moved towards looking at water as a resource for export to attract economy here, and we're in this incredible time of change, whether or not humans are creating it. It's hard to deny that the temperature is increasing, and global climate change is affecting areas around the globe, but it affects areas differently. So in order to really address this giant complex issue, we really are challenged to focus at the local level. So that's what we've done, and in order also to do this work effectively, we have got to be able to work with the diverse opinions that make up Siskiyou County and find really good ways of cooperating and collaborating and sitting down around the same table and respect our diverse opinions, hear each other out, and find a safe place to discuss controversial issues of common concern that literally affect us all. In my experience here thus far, that kind of is supposed to be facilitated in government, but if you go to town city council or town hall, it's a little scary to get up there and talk. Not only are people not necessarily informed, but there's this hierarchical structure that you've got to be courageous to get up there and say your piece. But unless we find that courage to get up there and acknowledge our concerns in the best way we know how, things are not necessarily going to change. So it's been amazing to have this time, this 10 months, to kind of take a step back, provide the big picture, understand these forest and watershed issues better so that we can move forward in a way that makes sense for our region and in a way that reinforces the ecosystems that provide the foundation for our economy in the first place. So this Bowles Fire was an interesting example of one of the primary threats to this region in climate change is catastrophic wildfire. Essentially for this region, it's catastrophic wildfire and drought that are our biggest concerns and our biggest threats. And what we've discovered is that the way we've been managing our forest and the way we're starting to manage our waters is it either exacerbates or alleviates the risk of these climate impacts. So in the process of, or I guess in the evolution of forestry here, we've gone from really hardcore tree removal. And then when the Endangered Species Act was passed in the 70s, the Forest Service owns about 63% of the land base in Siskiyou County. And so once that well-intended Endangered Species Act was passed, the Forest Service kind of took a hands-off approach, and they stopped harvesting trees, which has created conditions, they call them tinderbox conditions, these overgrown forests that when introduced with drought, creates the conditions for catastrophic wildfire. And one of the important things to remember is that this area evolved with fire. Fire was an essential element of these forests. That there, before humans, Western human settlements came, there was fire kind of rolled through the region on a 5 to 10 year interval, and there were cool, low-burning fires that kept the understory clear and allowed the strong trees to grow and flourish. And fire suppression, as it turns out, more than clear cuts, has been the greatest impact of the human impact that has kind of increased our risk of catastrophic wildfire in Siskiyou County. So even though the weed fire was ignited from an arson, the dry, overgrown conditions of the forest and the location of our communities right in the forest is part of what made that so devastating. So, learning from some of these lessons that we've accumulated along the way, we find that we have a lot of opportunity for rebuilding and revisioning our economy in a way that makes sense for meeting local needs and taking care of the ecosystems, like I said, that support us in the first place. Some of that is sustainable forestry, restorative forestry, riparian restoration, anything having to do with reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, including energy efficiency, energy conservation, renewable energy development, strengthening our local food system, making sure that we have access to the nutrients that we need to stay strong and healthy, and ecosystem restoration. So there's this whole world of economic opportunities that are kind of waiting for our political will. The obstacles to embracing these opportunities are not technical. They're simply psychological. And so this brings us back to what I was hearing on the first panel with the Burners Without Borders, Carmen talking about the importance of showing up in government, showing up in these forums, getting informed about these issues that do impact us. And the better we do that, the more we can approach these issues from a proactive stance. In 2011, I had my house burnt down. And I found out just how incredibly transformative those crises moments are if we have the ability to be grateful for that which we do still have, and the ability to receive the amazing blessings that accompany crisis and hardship. And so something that I learned is how amazing this area is at taking care of each other. I was just floored by how much support I got from this community. And I'm like, wow, we're really good at reacting. And I'm like, how can we get better at proacting? Is that a word?
Yeah, that sounds great.
So,
yeah, good.
so yeah, there's just so much opportunity, and I just to get back. Can I just wrap it up?
Sure, wrap it up.
Great. So, the process with the climate adaptation plan is the final draft is near complete. And the final draft for this, with this group that we've been working with, is essentially the first draft for Siskiyou County. So we are going to have a series of opportunities to get informed and participate and figure out how to get involved and help us create a plan that really makes sense for this area, something that the county and the cities can adopt. Because that's what it's going to take in order for this to be effective. So thanks again for listening and being here, and I'm hope you have some questions.
Yeah, thanks for that. Angelina has been working really, really hard on this thing. We know, burning the midnight oil and all this. Ramon, would you
Sure.
share what you have what comes up with? You know, we haven't had a chance to talk about this panel beforehand because we just met you. So, please say your piece.
Okay. So, like Jennifer mentioned earlier, I grew up here in Weed. I lived here my whole life, and like many of you that were born and raised here, you know how hard it is to, you graduate high school and you ask yourself, what am I going to do next? You're looking for job opportunities, and what can you find locally? I mean, I worked at Crystal Geyser here when I was in high school, picked up little odd-end jobs. But now with weed changing a lot, and that in Siskiyou County in general being one of the last counties in California, that we're really fortunate in this is the last part that hasn't really been developed, so there's a lot of opportunities for local people here in the community to really grow. And Jennifer and a lot of the people up here on the panel, they're like they mentioned, they're not originally from here, but they see a lot of potential, a lot of growth, and that's why they wanted to come here and live here in this community. It's a great area. And if you look at historically speaking on how Siskiyou County, how they mentioned, a lot of it started out with manufacturing. Abner Weed starting out with the lumber mill. My father, he's been working there for the last 27 plus years. So I understand how important it is for the community to be involved, for companies that want to organically grow here. I find that's probably the best way to do it, or find ways for smaller companies to come in and be part of the community, not just a giant corporation that's coming in, wants to just reap the benefits and leave. So I think a lot of the things here is we got to ask ourselves, what's the best thing we can do for our community? Whether it's starting a business, micro business, kind of like how the first panel mentioned, when they were out in Haiti, the people, as simple as it might be, selling sodas or selling beer out of what they were doing in Haiti because of, the whole legal system's a lot different, but doing something. Micro businesses and small businesses make up the majority of this country. Although they make up the majority parts of this country, and those are the businesses that actually support the local economy. So whether you're looking to start your own business or considering it, or you're a little nervous, or you always thought about it, there's tons of resources here around. You just have to look for them. For the people that aren't so interested in businesses, I just got back to the U.S. not too long ago. But the biggest thing I've learned since I've been back and seeing my parents kind of, go through their changes and realizing like all my stuff that I left behind here too, it's all gone, is what can we as citizens from Weed, whether we still reside here or we're just visiting or we just moved to the area, what can we do for the community? All of us have a different ability that we can all bring to the table, and don't be shy even around the people that came here today to the panel. You guys came because you care. And it's one of those things that if you care enough to come to this panel, don't be shy to go and introduce yourself to the people around here, because we're all in the same boat. I mean, there's an ability that you have that you can bring to the community that I know for a fact would be very grateful, very helpful, whether it's working at the food bank to volunteer or, sharing your past knowledge and, your life experience with somebody younger. There's a lot of young people here in the area that are trying to decide, okay, my home is gone, or what am I going to do next? There's a lot more. The biggest thing I've seen, just the biggest challenges I've seen here growing up is the people that are older in this community can really give a lot to the younger generations here. And if we want to see continued growth in Siskiyou County or see it completely change around, I truly believe this is the time to do it. So, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. I mean, that's an interesting perspective because, you know, I think I've been here 14 years now, but kind of coming and going a lot. And so it's great to get the perspective because we don't always talk to different cultural groups and different segments of the community a lot. I mean, I know, there was kind of the company town phenomena when you look back at the history of weed and there's a film that a filmmaker, Mark Oliver, made called From the Quarters to Lincoln Heights. I don't know if you've seen that film, but it's pretty fascinating, and it's a lot about the Afro-American community that exists in weed and how that came to be when the mill brought people from Louisiana for jobs. So, what would you guys think would be some good sources of jobs, some good sources of new industry? I mean, we obviously can't go back to the resource extraction model that, one local politician was saying the fire was a problem because of the spotted owl, and I hadn't quite figured out how that worked. But, if we are going to be looking at sustainable jobs that are good jobs, what are some of the sectors? I mean, we've got tourism, we've got maybe some IT jobs. Anybody have any kind of thoughts on those lines?
I'll give you one example right now because I was down in Chico for a little while. Sierra Nevada, for example. I went and visited their brewery, tried one of their beers, and they mentioned that they source their hops 2 hours away from Chico. And so, I'm a really avid home brewer. I've worked professionally in the industry too, and I asked them, well, where did you guys source the hops? 2 hours away, roughly around Weed, Mount Shasta area. They're like, oh, they came around, or they used to, we sourced them up there. So one of the industries that I learned used to be here, actually in Weed, out in Edgewood, was there used to be a hop farm out here. So hops is one where a company like Sierra Nevada comes and sources their hops here locally, their wet and wild hop ale. Half of it's built, or part of their recipe for making that beer comes from here out in Weed. Although they don't really promote it that way, but it's something that you don't know about your local community that I found out recently. It's pretty cool. I personally believe a lot of agriculture. A lot of agriculture, honey. I met a few people that were beekeepers around here in Siskiyou County, and it's one of those things. Bee population's declining. People are trying to keep, and bees are what pollinate.
That's a great thing
Yeah.
for small farms too, because if you're being able to produce smaller yields but higher quality. There's a company that was just in the New Yorker magazine, Del Campo Meats. It's up I think they're in Grenada. And, that's exactly their business model. They're selling high-end, high-quality beef down in San Francisco at the farmer's market. So there's a lot of opportunities that, as people think more about their food and think more about locally sourced organic food, there's some great stuff there.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of local agriculture is huge. And especially if we can shift towards growing crops that are locally relevant and locally viable, and that don't necessarily require a lot of water. But also the forests have so much work to be done. There's, I think, endless opportunities for jobs in forestry, everything from diversifying the forest economy to get, towards like biomass utilization, as well as, small diameter timber logging. And that's one example of jobs that are available in ways that empower us to make a good living while taking care of the ecosystems that we rely on.
I'm curious about some of the barriers. So you're talking about potentially starting something up here, like your own brewery, or are you facing any barriers with that?
So, the first time I left this community, a lot of it comes down to a lot of the things that, in general, if you observe here, that get created or built here in Siskiyou County, a lot of it gets exported to outside markets. So let's say the two biggest companies here in in weed that are not, run by the government. Crystal Geyser and Roseburg Forest Products. They build products, or they have a product that gets sold to outside markets. So I really believe the biggest thing we can do is marketing this area is an area where, it's a manufacturing area, or it's an area where you have, that's the thing, there's a really high quality of life here. You just have to find, in terms of nature, and that's why a lot of us are here. But the other thing too is how do we create that? Right now with all these, or with this whole incident that happens, weed's gotten put on the map. Now there's people from the Bay Area that have actually heard of this town, not just Mount Shasta, or they realize that there's actually places north of Sacramento. As shocking as it is, and believe me, I remember going to Chico State and telling people I'm from Weed, and they go, "Where's that?" I'm like, "By the Oregon border." "Oh, so way, way up there." Yeah. But I personally think manufacturing, IT would probably be something where it'd have to be attracting people from down in Silicon Valley, Sacramento area, and just giving them incentives. And that's something where we could persuade our government officials, our local government officials, to stop staying within just our own community, but go out and explore and go out and have our representatives that we elected as community members to go out and help us find opportunities for our community. Because we're all in this together. Our government officials here, a lot of them, and I know this too because I've lived here almost my whole life. A lot of them have just stayed here their whole life. You want to see bigger changes? The people that you elect as your government officials, find people that have been outside of Siskiyou County. Find people that have had experience in other parts, not just here locally. Sometimes I understand it's great, it's trusting. You've known a lot of these representatives or local officials your whole life. You went to high school with them, you went to college with them, they've been some of your great friends. But a lot of the new people that are in this area too, they bring something different to the table. So I think that's a big thing too, is how we as community members, how can we get our government officials, our local and our county ones and our regional ones, to get them to be proactive as well with our stuff. They always promise the same things and they don't always deliver. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
How do you do this? We do have one city council person in the room. I won't point him out. I think it's really important that we do have a dialogue with these folks. I think there's, until you really meet them, until you talk to them, a lot of them have the same concerns. They really want to do well. They've put in long hours making sure that the cleanup was done right and making sure that people were taken care of and their cases were managed. And you really got to have a lot of respect for that. I think it's also important that people get involved. You really voting and finding out where the ideas can come from in this community. Anybody out in the audience have some good ideas about what? I know what your idea is. Yeah.
In the mountain biking. That's for video. People can hear me. And I've always had the mountain biking in Reading is really nice. We've got in the past 6 or 7 years, the mountain biking has transformed, and we're getting people coming from all over Northern California and Oregon now to Whiskey Town. And I think it's a great way to get people from outside the community here to both economically support and bring new ideas to the region. And up in Bend, which I've been visiting since 1996, there's been a complete and total transformation of that town, which was essentially a kind of blue-collar place back in the early 90s that has now become sort of a mountain bike mecca, and it's brought, people are moving there just for the biking. And it has brought waves of restaurants and microbreweries. So it's like, once you start a little segment like that, it sort of builds upon itself, and it becomes its own power and program. And I know there's people here that are actively working on that. But it's like, it's good for our bodies and our minds and our
That's a
It's
great
great. Thank
example
you.
of ways to use our resources as attractors rather than exports. And the Economic Growth Group has been working for at least, 4 or 5 years? And the Mount Shasta Trail Association in McLeod, we have the Rail to Trail. There's definitely a lot of Cycle Siskiyou, a lot of momentum going in that direction. So thanks for that example. It's a huge one that we can kind of leverage at this point, because there is interest and recognition that that is a huge opportunity here.
All right. Jimmy?
Hi, my name's Jim Striegel. A lot of you guys know me as Jimmy Limo. I play music. I moved to the Weed area here about 4 years ago. I don't want to be known as a one-trick pony or a one-issue local resident, but every time I go through downtown Weed and I see all the empty storefronts, we have a beautiful historic downtown that's 100 years old, and these buildings need fresh paint. They need businesses inside. This town has been blessed, thanks to Abner Weed, with a trademark name that no other town in the state or the area, they can't buy, and that's Weed, California. California is on the cusp of legalization in the next 2 years. If you guys, I'm curious, how many of you guys voted in this last election? See, we have, that's what I expected with concerned people. That's what it takes to get our local councils and local governments to listen, is people showing up, voting, going to the council meetings when issues like this come up. They want to ban any medical dispensary in the city of Weed. The ballot measure just lost 45 to 55, but that was an advisory issue this last time. I'm really thinking a hemp-centric economy, besides everything else we have to offer as far as agriculture, recreation. This area is rich with the gifts that people will come here for: clean air, clean water, beautiful vistas. I really think that if they were to allow a dispensary, maybe somebody opens up a hemp clothing store, hemp foods, someone else starts selling farming and growing supplies, someone takes up the Weed Bakery, which is vacant for edibles, we could have a nice little center of town which would employ lots of people. That's about the only reason people pull off of I-5 now. They see the sign that says Weed, next 3 exits. They go, oh, let's go, get a T-shirt. And they pull off. And there's only the couple T-shirt shops, and there's the brewery. And then some people in town say, just have them buy their T-shirts and leave. No, you want these people to stay for days and come and get a hotel room and enjoy the area. And I think if we can get the town and some of the older members of the community to not be afraid of the change that's coming, it'll benefit this town immensely. A name brand recognition like that is, like I said, you can't buy it. One other project we're working on, besides just trying to get people to accept these things, is I, a couple years ago, bought 40 acres of land on the edge of town. We're trying to put up a Weed amphitheater, something along the lines of the Brit. This would be great if we could bring in concerts every Friday and Saturday night through the summer, from Memorial Day through Labor Day. If anybody wants to get involved either on the political end with getting the town to accept a cannabis economy, or if anybody wants to ask and support the amphitheater project, talk to me. I'll give you a card. I'd love to get your name. We need foot soldiers in this war to get Weed revitalized. I mean, it's a beautiful town with a beautiful history. The reason we got the 40 acres was basically originally for a wind farm, wind and solar, a demonstration wind farm, and then I found out that we've got a beautiful amphitheater site in the back, and so that's kind of taken over now. But if we can have a green musical center for attracting tens of thousands of people every summer, And they can go to these businesses in downtown Weed. The town would have full employment, we'd have full shops, and we wouldn't be looking at a ghost town all the time. Any feedback from the panel?
The one thing, like, a few years ago when I was younger, I worked with the lady that used to own the recording studio here in Weed, and that was actually one of the things that she was looking to do, was incorporating the theater into doing concerts and stuff. It's one of those things where I think the biggest thing is a lot of market research on how do you make Weed a destination or a pit stop between, let's say, the Sacramento and Portland area. So I was really interested. There was a gentleman here that mentioned the Bend model. And I mean, although I've never been to Bend personally, I've heard of a lot of people that have been up there, and the biggest thing that they have is they have a really young population. And, you know, I know they do a lot of good concerts up there. So I guess the big one on there is how do you attract bands to come here to this area where, let's say, they go to the amphitheater there and then come to the local community. But yeah, I love your idea on that one. But definitely, if you could, like, talk to the city councils, ask them about, like, concerts and venues and how they've had experiences in the past, see or people that used to live in this community, you know, what are the opportunities within starting an amphitheater, the music industry, check locally, see, you know, what venues are already here, what struggles they've had, what successes they've had, how big can it be, but you're definitely on the right track.
We need to work with the college, also COS, to help make Weed a college town. Right now, Weed is like an anti-college town.
Yes.
It's like you go to Humboldt State, great college town Arcata. You go to Southern University, great.
Oh yeah.
Here it's like non-existent.
I mean, I went to Chico State, and you look at Chico State or you look at Chico, or you look at the surrounding community around Chico, and what the rest of it's like, and it's almost like being here in Siskiyou County. I mean, I would love to see a university up in this area, because if we had a university up in this area, and that's, I mean, thinking really, really big, but if we actually had COS or we actually had a university built here in this community, it'd be fantastic. I mean, because that's where you bring outside people coming in, they fall in love with the place, and then they stay. And you see it happening in Chico with Sierra Nevada, Build.com, Clean Canteen, all these big companies. So I think a lot of it with us, even with Bend, Oregon, there's 15 breweries up there, they get concerts. So we got to ask ourselves as community members, and even people from outside, how did those cities or how did those towns get to the point they're at today? How did they grow? And I think that's the big thing too, and how do we attract younger people to the area? How do we give incentive to these Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs that want to start their businesses? Do we incentivize them with trying to get government grants to say, hey, you know what, we'll get yourself, or, you know, we have offers here for, you can rent out one of the buildings here downtown for, I mean, there's ways where we have to find ways to attract local or outside investment into the community and organically grow it. And especially, I think the biggest thing too is attracting young people. When you attract young people, that's how you're going to grow we're the future. So this is how it's going to end up growing.
I think one of the initiatives I'd like to see the Ecology Center take on is the Get People Outdoors initiative, because we have just amazing backcountry, we have amazing lakes, and there's lakes that I'll go up that I won't tell you where they are in the summer, and I can sit on an air mattress and float around there all afternoon and not see a single person. So there's some amazing recreation that is really an untapped resource up here. And you know, and also as far as the IT is concerned, you know, there's a fiber optic cable that seems to go right through the median strip on I-5, and it just kind of passes us by. So those would really be a potential good source of IT kind of jobs or tech jobs. There's a lot of people just need a computer to do their job, and some of those jobs are pretty well paid, and they go out to dinner, and then there's restaurants, and pretty soon you've got a real vibrant, fun town. Not that it's not fun now.
Jennifer, you asked for some of the obstacles. I think there's a lot of kind of political, economic obstacles, but we kind of got to look at some low-hanging fruit. And one of the obstacles that I've noticed prevent young people from moving up here is some of the housing ordinance and zoning in McLeod. I think 40% of the homes are empty because of how much vacation rentals we do around here. And so it kind of drives up the market so that the young people with modest incomes, it's hard to grow organically. It's like we don't really want to have to chase after those big government grants to come save the day. We'd like to see that organic growth occur. And I think just looking at how do we increase the occupation in our existing buildings is one way that we can dissolve some of these infrastructural obstacles to reviving our area in a way that we know is possible.
You know, it's an interesting question. How much growth can we or should we have? Because Siskiyou County actually has declined in the last few years in the number of population. So, and of course, after the mortgage crisis, a lot of those houses got foreclosed and are still empty. So, do we really want to become Bend? Do we want to become Aspen? Where's the sweet spot for us? I mean, obviously, you've got empty houses, you want to fill them. You've got empty storefronts, you want to fill them. You know, how do we plan this in a real sustainable way that doesn't come up with runaway growth?
That's the point of beating the drum for jobs and growth. I lived in Santa Cruz, and Pacific Avenue, now it's a mall. At 5 o'clock, you could shoot a cannon down Pacific Avenue and not hit anyone. Now, you can't even walk down there at midnight. It's just full. Bend, I used to go to Bend. I wouldn't live in Bend now for anything. It's a mess. It's just strip malls and a mess. And I was just down at the Bay Area. I don't know how people do it. I've lived here 35 years. I love it here. Going up to a lake, not seeing anyone, I love that. I hike, backpack, I've summited Mount Shasta 13 times. And growth without planning is just crazy. That's what we should be talking about, not bringing people in here. I can, right now, in a morning, I can drive from my house to downtown and maybe not meet another car. But do I want to meet 20, 30, 50, or have all of these, the change like that? I think that's what we have to look at, far before bringing people in here.
So here's a question for you then. Explain to somebody that's between the ages of 20 to 25 how we're supposed to make a living here. Because I understand you've been here 35 years. I lived here 20 years. It's one of those things. I understand people from the Bay Area, people from Los Angeles, people from the big cities. They make their life over there. They bust their butt off, and they want to escape all the craziness. And that's why they come to areas like this. But how sustainable is it for, like how she mentioned, 40% of McLeod is vacation rentals. They don't stay there permanently. I mean, it's really depressing to see Dunsmuir, McLeod. Weed right now is definitely on its path to going like McLeod if we don't change it. I mean, the mill closed in McLeod, and look at what happened in the town. And that was the last resource they had. And the thing is this, Siskiyou County is one of the biggest counties in all of California. I mean, there's plenty of places where one can live and live secluded without anybody bothering you and still have access to coming into town and stuff. I mean, the likelihood it's going to turn into a Santa Cruz where it's completely packed, if I see it in my lifestyle like that, I'll be in shock. But I think the big thing too is there's a lot of people, there's an older generation that comes from outside and they're just looking to retire and enjoy the comfort of just being relaxed and enjoy an easy lifestyle. But for the younger generation, you know, what about us?
Well, my kids have all left, and my partners did. So that's 5 have left. And they went out and went to college, got their master's degree, and they're working around the world. I understand that. But if we just blindly go into growth, I say we got to plan it. how do you harness it? How can you bring jobs to all these people and throw all of this that we have away? No crime, little crime, all of those things that we appreciate. We can drink the water, endless things that we, most of the time I pull up to the stop sign in Mount Shasta or Weed, well, maybe not Weed because of Highway 97, but maybe a first or second person. I was down the Bay Area last week. I just don't get it. So growth, unlimited, all for the jobs for young people, if we can really see a way clearly how we can do it in a sane way, is my point.
Yeah, no, and I completely respect that part of it. But how you mentioned too, your children, other people's children, they have their master's degree and they work all around the world. I mean, I've worked in all sorts of different parts around the world too, but it kills me every time I come back home. I'm super grateful I grew up in this area. After living in Santiago, Chile, which has 7 million people, the first time I went and lived there studying abroad, I just about went insane. It was crazy. But then, and every time I came back to Weed, it was like, wow, I'm so grateful I lived here. But where are the opportunities for us to stick and actually be that next generation that's going to make an impact?
Well, is part of the answer to that what segments what industries you're getting into? Because again, we historically have had the timber industry, resource extraction, water extraction, things like that. And I think with people having the ability to make a living being just plugged in, certainly if you had, the success story I saw this week was the Firewhat people down in Dunsmuir, where they came in, they're doing app development for firefighters so that people can get the information they need when they're fighting a fire. A huge benefit that technology that they're developing has. And they're saying, well, when we need to hire an app developer, we have to go convince them to come live up here and move them up here and all that stuff. So I'm wondering if there's some training or there's some ways in which the local people can learn those skills that would enable them to just stay right here and make their living on the internet, or if anybody knows of any initiatives about that. Okay. Don't all speak at once.
There's a hand up over here.
Okay, sure.
Ramon, you were saying that there's so much wisdom to be passed on from our elders and to the younger folks, and I just feel like you coming back here is a real gift to this community. And I don't know how much time you're going to be here or what you're doing, but if I was in high school here and experiencing the things that we're experiencing, and you came in as this bright light from the outside saying, here's what's possible, I've seen the world and I still want to be here. And so just creating the seeds of possibility in young minds that, when I was 18, I had someone come into my school and said that, we could make this work here, and I've never forgotten that. We never know how when we share our passion, how it's going to transform people's lives in a way. And I'm not even in high school, and I would love to come and hear what you might say to high school folks and people like you, because I do think that people, it sounds like from just the 2 days I've spent here, is that people leave, and then it's like, you can talk about a resource leaving the community. So I don't know if there's anything like that in the high school or the education that's looking at entrepreneurship. I know that I didn't have that in school, and if it had been an idea, I would be better in business, just the little things like that just are like, oh, I didn't know that was a path I could have gone down. And so are you aware if there's anything, or did you have anything like that?
So I went to Mount Shasta High School, for example. I went to Weed and Mount Shasta, both schooling systems. For at least the Weed community, I think a lot of it comes down to knowing how to tap into your resources of people that have already had success and came back to live in Weed. Just like I've heard of a few fellas that they did super well off, moved back to Dunsmuir, and there's a few gentlemen out there, or there's a few people out there that are trying to revive Dunsmuir. There's one guy I've heard of from Chico, his name's Chris Freeland. He grew up here in Weed, and he owns a multi-million-dollar company out of Chico. I mean, getting people like that to come back to the community and just talk about, their experiences here in Weed, and they understand too, the struggles of growing up here and stuff. There is some resources. A few years back, I got into entrepreneurship because somebody from outside came and from Miami and came and spoke about entrepreneurship. They gave us 1 week to come up with a business plan, talk about how we're going to pitch our business, and then the finalists, the top 2 finalists from that competition would go off and compete at nationals. I was actually one of those 2 people. So it's one of those things where California, and this is, I'll tell you this just from experience of going and traveling other parts. California as a state, we're very, very entrepreneurial. We're very, very entrepreneurial. We have this mindset, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And it's one of those things where for me, I would love to see the high schools try to incorporate more ways of mentoring, internships, because not everybody wants to, start their own business, but sometimes we want to go and learn about an industry that we might not have been interested in or, explored without having that sort of introduction. I did my first internship here in WeedAid at 13 because I wanted to get in the music industry. Did 2 years working for free, and I realized after 2 years, it wasn't for me. But it's one of those things where we have to learn, whether it's parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts, the older generation, mentoring the younger people, getting involved with the schools. And that's the thing, too. A lot of the schools here, too, we don't get a lot of people from, at least from when I was going to school around here, we don't get a lot of local people coming in and talking about, hey, sharing people from the outside that just moved in the area. I would have loved to hear stories of, Jennifer or Andy coming into, let's say, like in Mount Shasta High School, they have an accounting class. Coming in, talking about their experiences, some like just general groundwork advice on how you could work your way up to working in finance. Or getting local community members, here in Weed, getting involved with the high school. They do their senior project and stuff, but how can we connect community college, the high school, the elementary school, and professionals, professional people here in the community to work together? And I think a lot of it comes down to is our teachers are our most important, pillar here in the community. And our administrators, or the people that are the ones administrating those schools, I know they have their standards and stuff they have to do, but at least connecting with the community, offering opportunities there. Going, hey, we have a 1, 2 day, 3 day internship for people that are interested in learning about manufacturing or learning about the honey business. And, you could have small children just understanding how honey's processed. Middle school kids doing a little bit more once you get into high school, understanding the actual business model. Coming out and then maybe they end up getting a job and they find their passion. And that's, I think, the biggest thing while one is young too. Like, I'm still trying to find my passion. And it's trial and error, but I believe if we're able to lay the groundwork for the younger people of finding their passion, and if they can find it here in this community, they'll stay.
All right, well, thank you. We are actually a little bit out of time, but I've got 2 more gentlemen here that want to say something really quick, so I'm gonna give you the talk fast speech. So,
my name's Dr. Scott Durbin. I had a chiropractic practice in Weed for 24 years. I sold it last year to a young man from Reading who took over my practice. You went to school with my daughter, Ashley.
Yes.
Ashley is now in San Jose. She graduated from school. My other daughter's in San Francisco. This discussion here is deja vu all over again. In 1993, we had the exact same discussions here because this town was declared an endangered community. In 93, nothing has changed. The spotlight is temporarily on it. The issues, I've heard all of these issues again. Tourism, if you base your economy on tourism, you're going to have a lot of seasonal minimum wage jobs. That's why you can't open a business here, because people can't afford to buy things here. They will go to Medford to buy them and save a few bucks. That's continually, nothing has changed with that. Unless there are jobs with benefits where people can afford to stay here and purchase things from this community. Small businesses, and I've seen dozens of them come and go in Weed, in Mount Shasta, and in Dunsmuir over the last 25 years. Dozens of them. One of the biggest problems with that is we have absentee landlords that own properties in Dunsmuir and here that fall in disrepair, and it's difficult to dislodge them so that something positive can be done with them. My wife was on the city council for 9 years. We worked very hard to try to bring this town up. And we're right back exactly to the same place that we are with the same problems. One of the problems, raise your hand if you lived in the city of Weed here. Okay, there's the problem. There's the problem. There's the problem right there. The people that are vitally involved in the future of this are absent. And I applaud your concern as neighbors, but the people that really need to be here are the Laotians who lost their homes and can't even speak English, the people that are getting screwed over by the insurance companies. And, you know, I don't know what the answers to this is. You know, we tried to get a distribution center here. There was called an economic zone here, and that was trying to attract, because we're between every place and every place else, you know, a big Walmart distribution center or something that creates jobs. Because short of the extraction industries, the only other people that make a decent living here are in service industries, nurses, physical therapists, doctors, you know, and they can only serve so many people. You know, I would love to see my daughters be able to come back here, and you know, so there are ongoing problems. I'm glad to see the bioregional proactivity, because you frankly have a really bad reputation in this town for holding up the power plant at Roseburg for 3 years, which we thought was completely reactive and completely, you know, you've got a bad rep here, and you're going to have to work to gain the trust of the people I know that live in this community, that work for Crystal Geyser, that work for Roseburg, that work for extraction industries, who've lived here their whole lives, and they want their kids desperately to stay here. That's all they know. And they're not a part of this discussion, folks. And unless you can reach out to them and get them to listen to your ideas without thinking, oh, it's crazy Jimmy Limo. You know, it's like, they're good ideas, but you have not got their ear, nor have you their trust. And until that happens, nobody with good ideas outside of this community are going to be heard or anything acted upon.
I'm curious what fields your daughters are going into, or are they in? What are their professions? What areas are they interested in, your daughters?
Well, my one daughter works for a construction company in San Jose, commercial construction. And my other daughter, younger daughter, is going to start Palmer Chiropractic School in May. And in 3.5 years will be a chiropractor. I doubt if she will come back here to practice. But, you know, that seems to be the best shot for people, is get a professional degree and then move back to the place that you want to live. Because I did very, very well here in 24 years. You know, but if you all, you know, you need to meet the people in Weed. You need to know the people in Weed in order to get anything done here. Because they're great people. I love them dearly. They're salt of the earth people, and they basically want the same things. But I see over and over again all of these people talking around and, oh, we're going to do good and all of this, and not showing up and dealing with the actual people that are impacted by this continued impoverished community.
Can you recommend a place where we can meet?
You know, show up at city council meetings. You know, get on the agenda for the city council meeting, because that's where the homies are going to be, and talk to them about ideas that you might have. You know, and you know, the problem with the city council situation is no one here can run for city council unless you live in the city.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. My wife did a 9-year tour of duty. We already did that. But, you know, the involvement of the greater community in what's going on in Weed is been an ongoing problem. It's not just the college being separate, but it's the rest of the communities being separated. And the people who live here will attest to that.
Well, thank you very much, and that was a really impactful thing. We've got a couple minutes, but I'm going to have one more comment, and almost two more comments.
Real quickly, in support of Dr. Durbin here, he's right. If you look around this audience, there's very few people. In relation to, and oh, by the way, I'm the guy that's on the city council. I'm also a private employer. I am in business. I've been in business for 35 years. I've lived in Weed for pretty much the same time. So in speaking, I didn't get your name, and I'm really horrible at names, so I'm sorry.
Ramon.
No, not the young man, the young lady here.
Angelina?
Okay. If you come to a council, you need to tie the ecologic into the economic.
Yeah.
And it can't be ideals.
Mm-hmm.
It has to, people here have to be shown, okay? And we have to encourage them to participate. I am impressed with the young man in the middle that if he and others of his age group could encourage the participation of others in their age groups, and maybe 10 or 15 years his senior, to participate in the system as well, we would have success. We need to engage the college. The current city council is attempting to engage the college. We have an economic development group that kind of got waylaid about September 15th, but again, it was very difficult to get the parties to come to the table. You call a meeting and 5 people show up. You call another meeting and 10 people show up, and you keep calling the meetings, but it just doesn't resound in the neighborhood. So if this young man has influence, you need to influence people to participate. It is key to this neighborhood. In regards to economics, if our downtown is going to survive, everything we develop here has to be, whether it's cannabis or whatever, or breweries, it has to be Walmart proof. It has to be businesses that do not conflict with a Walmart type of enterprise. That's long gone now. So anyway, I'll shut up for right now.
All right. Thank you very much. This is a conversation that hopefully we will be continuing on with, additional programs from the Ecology Center as we have our new and friendlier Ecology Center. And I really appreciate these comments, because this is exactly what we were looking to do, was to learn from the people. Carmen, her first question of me when I asked her to be on the panel was, well, what do the people think? What's happening to the people? So we are going to have one small comment, and then we're going to have Jerry Hannon play music, because the cops are having a comedy show after us. So we don't have the hall all night. So one last question, please.
I really do have a very short comment, because I have an offer. My name's Yaj, and I'm telling you my name because in case you want to follow up on what I'm going to share, you can find me on Facebook, Yaj, Y-O-J Chase. Regarding industry, that's cool, so just following up, a couple brilliant ideas. One is transportation. Angelina can attest to what I'm sharing to you, because she's experienced it, and a few others. This is across the board, young and old alike. My thought and feeling is a brilliant electrically assisted bicycle manufacturing everything, and distribution, all right here, Walmart proof to the max. Why I'm mentioning bicycles, electric bicycles, because right as we're here tonight speaking, and last week, they just developed, they're released right now, 2 brand new batteries that have never, these are, when I say brand new, you come to me and talk to me, and I'll fill in the blanks for you. Brand new. Anyway, electrically assisted bicycles rock. They totally rock. The other thing is, here's a hot idea. You want a hot idea? Because new apps, young people, is hot agriculture that is so freaking hot. And not skip cannabis or do what you want to. I'm talking food agriculture that is fiery hot, that'll get everyone's attention. In a full distribution, manufactured, everything. Hot agriculture, hot, and then electrically assisted bicycles. Yaj Chase, and I'll fill in the blanks for you. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate everybody for being here, and thank you, everybody. Give yourselves a hand.